episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so excited you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Olivia Grauke. She has 3 children ranging from 14 to 18. 2 are at Logos School where I work, and 1 is a freshman in college this year. She and her husband have lived in the Northwest most of their lives. They've moved all over the Northwest, and currently he works as a radiologist, and she helps him with real estate investing and does property management, as well as feeding 3 teenage kids. So she has a lot to tell us about hospitality and food. I'm excited to hear what she has to say. Welcome, Olivia.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So my family moved to Idaho back in the early 1980s. And so I grew up here and went to Logos all the way through, and then stayed local for college, went to U of I. My husband and I got married, and we've been away for about 15, 18 years, somewhere in there, and then came back in 2020.
That's so exciting because your family is thrilled to have you back.
Yes, we have both sides of the family here and some siblings left in town, so that's really fun.
So much fun, especially to have cousins near each other.
Yes, so many cousins. My kids have 18
Wow.
first cousins.
Oh, that's great.
It's fun. Lots and lots of teenagers and late elementary years right now. So it's fun.
So you mentioned earlier, I want you to tell us a little bit about all of the things that you do for hospitality. I know you have friends and family over. You mentioned earlier your daughter attending U of I, University of Idaho, as a freshman, and you were talking about starting a soup night, which I had another guest on here, Jenny Story, does the same thing. Tell me a little bit about what your plans are.
So right now we're planning on having just a weekly soup night. I think we're going to do soup just because that's proven to be the most easy, sustainable thing.
And it works really well in the Northwest because it gets cold here pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. So we're just going to leave it as an open invite to all of the U of I and Wazoo kids, or kids who are that age but are not at college and they're just working full time. So we just have, my daughter has probably at least, 3 or 4 friends who are just working and not going to school too. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of want to make it an open invite and do that every week. And then hopefully I've got a couple friends that we're going to take turns doing the cooking. So even though we're hosting every week, I'm hoping that we can take turns doing all the food.
Yes, tag teaming is a great idea when it comes to prepping for that many people.
Yeah.
It makes it more fun, but also more doable and sustainable over a long period of time.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that we'll get that going next week. So that's on my list to do, is get the schedule set up. So
that's such a great idea for kids, especially starting a brand new environment such as a college, where they only know a few people, to be able to come somewhere every week and gather their friends or classmates that they've just met and just have a great time together, eating and fellowshipping. What a great idea.
Yeah, it should be really fun. And my daughter's already met some other kids from out of town who are in her program, and she wants to be able to invite them to something, and everybody always wants to come for food. Mm-hmm. So yes, it should be really fun.
And if they're from out of town, they're especially looking for a good home-cooked meal.
A lot of them are just, stuck in the dorms.
Yes, so. And a smiling mom face.
Yeah.
Exactly. It feels like home to be here having soup.
Exactly.
So what is the favorite menu you might choose to serve for dinner?
So speaking of soup night, I have a smoky ham and corn chowder that I make. And
that sounds amazing. And we do not have, I'll have to look at my index. Speaking of, anything we talk about, you can find on the comeoverfordinner.com website. Look under the index for these recipes. I'm pretty sure I do not have this type of soup on that index. So tell us about it.
Okay. Well, it's always one that is the most popular out of anything that I've ever made. So everybody loves it. You do 3 different kinds. It's definitely like pork heavy because you do 3 different kinds of meat: pork chops, bacon, and then also just smoked ham. It's just it's pretty simple. There's veggies and potatoes, and then you just add the corn and the cream at the end. So it's really delicious. And you can serve it just as like a side with other things. And so I've done both ways. I've done it as the main course.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it as a side. Sometimes if we have like a lot of little kids, I'll also serve it with drumsticks on the side. Like, I know it sounds funny, but you're making a funny face.
Picturing.
So
drumsticks with the soup. With the
what I like
3
to
different
do,
meat soup.
Well, okay. So let me clarify.
Prove this.
Let me clarify. I always serve it with biscuits.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
And so that makes it like I always have an extra big plate where I serve it with biscuits and a salad. And then sometimes we'll do just like this giant platter of smoked drumsticks.
That sounds
the
amazing.
The whole meal is very smoky.
Mm-hmm.
Goes really well with like biscuits and honey. And I just have found over the years that a lot of little kids, like littler ones,
Mm-hmm.
they may not eat like a ton of soup.
That's true.
And so
it's a lot easier to have a piece of meat or a drumstick to hold on to.
Yeah, it's a finger food, so it just is easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've served the soup either by itself without doing that, and then it's totally fine because you can do like a salad and biscuits. But you can also you can have more people. Like if you are suddenly like, oh, there's a couple, there's another family that we want to add on or whatever. And then you can just beef it up with like grabbing it doesn't have to be drumsticks. It can be thighs or like whatever. But you can just throw those on the Traeger too.
Mm-hmm.
And then
all of a sudden your soup is going a lot further because they have a main dish.
Yeah. But it's also just like an easy finger food to just add to the plate. So you're still doing that on the side.
Do you have a specific salad or a favorite biscuit recipe you make? Or do you buy a salad to make it quicker? What do you do when you're planning your sides?
I I definitely rotate through a couple different salads. But for this one, the soup is it's very hearty.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it. It sounds like I'm planning it this weekend.
It's a chowder, so you can make it as heavy as you want or not, depending on how much, just the quantities of how you want to adjust it. But I just do like a simple arugula salad with maybe some shaved Parmesan inside, like mixing that around, and then just doing a really simple lemon vinaigrette and something just kind of to take something a little bit more acidic to cut the fat of like, this is a triple pork chowder that everyone loves, but they need a good green salad on the side. So I just do a really simple acidic lemon salad.
Something that tastes fresh and bright.
Fresh and bright. Yeah, because I also serve it with biscuits. I love Peter Reinhardt's recipe for biscuits. Have you heard of Peter Reinhardt?
I don't think I have.
He wrote this book that I have used for a really long time. I don't know if I wrote it down. I think it's called Artisan Breads Every Day or something like that.
Okay. I think I've heard of that book.
I've had that cookbook for a really long time, and everything I have made from there has always turned out perfectly. So I love his biscuit recipe, and I have just been making that for a really, really long time. And it just turns out every time.
Okay. I quickly looked up Peter Reinhardt on Wikipedia. American baker, educator, and author. He is most known for writing Bread Revolution and some other things. What was the name of the book you said you had?
The one that I use the most is Artisan Breads Every Day. I think that's the name of it. I do like Bread Revolution as well, although I have never been a prolonged dedicated bread baker, I will say. I love his, he's got a pizza dough recipe that's really good in there. And he has got great pictures, great methods, and all metric measurements, which I also really like.
Really?
For baking.
Yeah. You do? Do you have a scale where you weigh all the ingredients? Mm-hmm. That's very precise. And I believe, isn't that how true bakers do it?
I think so. For baking, if you want it to turn out the same every time, it's so much more precise, but it's also I think it's faster.
Okay.
I think it's just faster when you're putting them in and just watching the number on the scale. You can, you don't have to
measure and make sure, like if you're scooping flour, that you're not compacting it. You want to make it airy and then level it at the top. But if you're just putting it by weight, I looked up a picture of the book Peter Reinhardt's Artisan Breads Every Day, Fast and Easy Recipes for World-Class Breads. I don't recognize the cover, so I don't think this isn't the one I was thinking of. I don't think I have heard of this book.
I don't know where I got it, but I've had it for many, many years.
That is a very fun recommendation. So your favorite, you mentioned the pizza dough. You said, did you mention that you do have a biscuit recipe out of here?
Yeah. I think it's like titled like the best biscuit recipe ever.
Okay.
And it's in that book. So
Okay, that sounds amazing. That sounds so delicious. And it's good to know tried and true recipes where okay, I can do this even for guests for the first time, and it's going to turn out.
Well, you probably have a tried and true biscuit recipe being from the South.
I do have a note. I keep a binder. I'm old school. In fact, when I find recipes online, I still want to, and sometimes do, print them and put them in the binder, especially if they're a favorite, because I'm trying to come up with, and I have had some great suggestions on this podcast about how to organize digital recipes, because you forget. Like if you find a favorite on a website, well, a year later, do you even remember you made it or where it was, even if you can remember that you made it? So how do you organize it? Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm the, whatever they call it, where I'm half in the tech and then half in the generation of like
me
still
too.
writing everything down.
Yes, me too.
So,
I have my binder, but then I've started a Google Doc.
Yes.
I think it was Katie Grauke who said tabs. She does tabs under a Google Doc or was it Google Sheets? It was one of them where she has categories, but it is organized very neatly online. And
so I do both. I have a binder where I print recipes also. And then I also have a lot of Google Sheets I've gotten better, but I'm trying to keep track. Katie's really good about that. But yeah, I do both. So I have a lot of Google Sheets, and I have them categorized by like, I don't know, if I'm hosting people from out of town, then I'll have like the whole week in there.
So smart.
That way from year to year, if I have the same people come stay every year, then there it all is.
So do you try to do something different, or you try to do the same thing every year?
Well, I have probably like 3 or 4 different weeks with menus planned for like a group of 20 if they're staying with you. And so then you can do like, you've got all of your breakfasts to choose from, all of your dinners to choose from. And then I have a Winco list and a Costco list, and it's already written out.
Okay, I need to see this because this sounds amazing.
This is just
and so organized.
Well, it's Katie and I will do. She's my sister-in-law, so we will do trips together. But she's been the one who's really good about like, okay, well, let's set up a sheet for the week, and so that got me in the groove of doing it. So then when I started having people come stay with us,
you knew how to organize it.
Like, okay,
kept you on track.
It keeps me on track. I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you have out of town guests, or even if I just want to pull one of the main things for having. We really like having at least 2 families at the same time over for dinner. And so there it is. It's just like a recipe for 20, and I can.
And then you already have your list.
And then
So you can quickly go to the store and not have to be writing everything down and looking back and forth from 3 or 4 different recipes, trying to make a list.
I mean, I've gotten better about putting the recipes in the sheet of the ones that I always use. But I'm not so organized on that part. Like I still do print things and put them in a binder. So I'm just kind of in between. But I think the younger ladies can use apps and things. I'm pretty sure that's what they do.
Yes.
Or they use Chat GPT to give them shopping lists.
Really?
My daughter started doing that. Yeah.
Where you can just
like
put in the link.
You can put in a bunch of recipes, and then it'll
make a shopping list.
Tell you a shopping list for you. So I'm not that techie yet.
I'm not that techie. That is so interesting. Yeah. So does she copy and paste the recipe or the link and then say make a grocery list?
I will have to ask her.
Ask her.
Yeah.
I will
have to ask her.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
this is needed information.
I mean, you can, I think that the kids are doing that.
Yeah.
They're like,
using technology to make things quick and fast, quick and fast are synonyms.
Yeah. You can
are the same word.
Things like, can you give
quick
me
and easy
a meal plan for the week that will cost less than whatever? I think you could do that.
Yes.
So
Okay.
there you go. That's
I
a
have
whole
to go
new
play
world.
with ChatGPT and all the others. Now there's the competition. I don't know if it's competition or just another version, but apparently Microsoft has one now called something different, another AI. And
Yeah,
the world is changing around
it
us.
is. It is. So I'm half in and half out, I guess.
Oh, same. I definitely still have my 16-year-old son come and help me when there's problems. I've done a couple of Zoom podcasts, and he has to be on hand. And it's still not great. I still haven't figured it all out, but I'm getting better. So,
For sure.
Which, quick shout out to, we are recording where Catherine Church and her husband, they own a realty company. This is where I record most of the time. Sometimes I do it on Zoom or with my iPhone, but I record in her daylight basement of their realty company. And they have created a whole new podcast spot, which is just amazing. New sound equipment, new microphones. I feel very fancy and very advanced right now.
It is very fancy.
I feel like, I've taken a step forward in that digital world that we're talking about. So anyway, thank you,
totally have.
Catherine. It's very fun to be able to record a hopefully very professional sounding podcast if I figured out how to use this equipment correctly. Back to food. So that's your menu. It sounds like you've created an amazing way to organize it. Do you use any shortcuts or time savers when you're making this to make it a little bit quicker the day of, or do you make everything the day before your company comes over?
I try and always make the soup. I always make it the day before, or you can even make it 2 days before. And it actually is better. I mean, I think most soups are like that.
Mm-hmm.
You just hold the last, like you don't put the cream and the corn, you add at the very end. And so you just don't add that and just make it, you can make it entirely ahead. And then biscuits always hold really well for a couple hours, and they're better if
They're better fresh.
They're better fresh, like baked right away. And then they're also like, even after you cut them and everything, it's better for the gluten to have relaxed for a while in the fridge. So they're actually a little fluffier and lighter. So you can make those beforehand, but then leave them in the fridge for a couple hours before you bake them. So yeah.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. I always try and do that. And if we're doing it after church, we have done this after church, and it works really easy because we go to the late service.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make the biscuits and then just pop them in the fridge while you're gone at church and then come home and bake them. So,
and who does not want to walk into a home for lunch smelling fresh baking biscuits in the oven? That is amazing.
yeah.
That's actually a tip. Speaking of having a real estate company, actually it's not a real estate company. It's a realty company.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Either.
speaking of having a realty company or trying to sell a home, I've read the tip that if you want to sell your home faster, you need to have something cooking in the oven when people come to tour your home, like fresh baking bread or fresh baking cookies, or at least a candle, I guess, that smells like one of those.
For sure. No, we always made, so I used to do this actually.
You did?
In the homes that we've bought and sold,
Mm-hmm.
I would buy a white cake mix for like 98 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just bake that. You don't even have to eat it afterwards if you don't want to. You don't have to put the eggs or the oil in, just water. And you bake it in the oven, and then it makes your house smell like vanilla, but like a good vanilla.
So when people walk in, it feels like home. They're happy. They want to buy your home.
Yep. You can also take a straight vanilla and put like a tiny dab on your light bulb, like light bulbs. Maybe that's a fire hazard, but I used to do that too, just a little bit.
One tiny dab you would think would be okay. Yeah. That is so
if you
interesting.
Don't have time for the cake. It's also a hot tip.
I've never done that before.
Yeah. It just makes your house smell nice when people walk in.
That's a really quick air freshener and not a candle or a spray or something like that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting tip.
I don't know.
Making people feel welcome with the smells.
I've done many things, but you can't do too many candles.
That's true. And you don't want the ones that are overpowering your food. So maybe something small in the bathroom, but if you have them all over your house, then it competes with your main meal.
That's a fun tip.
Very fun tip. What is your best prep tip when you're having 20 people over, having 20 people you have to serve?
Well, I do like I like doing it the day before if I can. I think what it is that if you're standing and chopping for an hour or so, and then you got the shopping to do and you want to pick up your house a little bit, I just like dividing that between 2 different days. So I just like doing all that ahead. And then the day of, all you have to worry about is setting the table and making sure the bathroom's clean.
Maybe lighting a little candle in the corner.
Yes, exactly. I just like shopping ahead. A lot of people, and me included, I like Walmart pickup for pantry staples and just the things that they always have on hand. They're always ready for you. So that's really nice too. I just mostly like doing things ahead of time or always thinking, like, even if it's during the week and I'm thinking, okay, so maybe I'm making soup a different night that week, but I'll do all the onion chopping on that day because they stay fine in a airtight container. So
if you have everything prepped, it's very easy to assemble and cook.
Well, I always look for my week of whatever I'm making. If I'm feeling really organized that week, then I'll just see what's ahead. And so if I know that I'm going to make the soup for people on the weekend, then I'm also doing this and that requires chopped vegetables for that. Then I just take one time, one mess, and
one
cleanup and do it all at the same time.
And
then just divide it up by the day. So sometimes like things that are just like if you're mincing garlic or mincing ginger or you're putting them together or whatever it is, I like to do it in big batches for the week.
And then you're doing everything one time. You're not having to wash the same knife and cutting board 5 times.
Yep.
It saves a lot of time if you can be organized enough to pull that off. And it really does help to work towards that or work into that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't always have every single dinner planned out for the week, but I do kind of know after this long, like what we go through in a week. I think you just develop like a rhythm of what your family likes and eats. And maybe you always keep these things for these recipes. And sometimes I'll even be like, oh yeah, I have all that ginger and garlic minced already. So now we're going to make stir fry tonight or what,
Yes, it kind of inspires you to make something with what you have in the fridge.
Yeah.
I had a good menu plan this week and was just kicking along, doing so good. It was the first week of teaching school. I came home from school one day thinking, okay, the last menu that I had planned for this week, before I needed to make another plan, I had some kind of chicken it was pineapple, soy sauce, I don't know, some kind of glaze that went on it. Okay, I'll make that for tonight. And then I realized my chicken's frozen.
Oh, yes, that's the worst.
Maybe my note to self should have been to put the chicken in the fridge a day or two ahead of time. I mean, I still could have defrosted it and all that, but anyway, we just ate leftovers that night because I was just like, no, it's just, I'm tired. It's too late in the day.
That has happened.
Do that chicken later this weekend.
Exactly. So many times.
So being organized, knowing your plan when you walk in the door or when it's time to start, it's so helpful. I mean, the whole rest of the week went pretty well for me, as far as like when I walk in the door, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start chopping this, I'm going to, whatever.
Yeah.
But, yesterday didn't go so well.
Well, that has happened to all of us, like countless times where, I had a fridge where the top shelf would freeze things, but I'd always forget. And so, you go to get thing
the
out
slushy
for dinner.
milk.
Yeah. And you're like, ooh, I forgot.
The orange juice completely frozen solid.
The vegetables that are frozen.
The lettuce. Yes.
The lettuce.
It's like, well, when you defrost that, it's just not really going to be the same.
No. Yeah. Totally done that.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home?
I think just having all the lights on, having some music playing. I like to have drinks set out. I am the type of person that I always forget about drinks. And so I have worked really hard on myself to remember to do that. But I think that's when people walk in, you want them to be able to congregate somewhere. And so having like drinks set up. And so that's been.
What drinks do you set up? What's your bar?
I just try and always have water, lemonade, a punch or something for the kids. And then if it's like on the weekend, then we'll do wine for the adults, that kind of a thing. But just having a place where people see where it is and they, you can welcome them in and then walk them to somewhere where they can get a drink and have something in their hand. And we do that a lot. Sometimes we do appetizers, sometimes we don't. So it just kind of depends on the flow of the week or what I'm making or if I remember to do it or not. Always making sure that you're having your lights on and music up. And that way when people come in the door, they know that everybody's having a good time.
And they immediately have something that they can go and grab and have something in their hand and have something to eat or drink before the meal starts if you're not quite ready.
Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Yep.
I'm very practical. I always think of water, but then later I'm like, oh, I mean, we oftentimes up here, especially because it's cold, we'll offer coffee after dinner.
Yeah.
But I sometimes think later, like, maybe I should be a little more fun than just water.
Oh, well,
I should offer some lemonade or cute sodas or sparkling water. All of those are great ideas. I often forget, but
yeah. Well, I forget too. But then, the kids really like having.
Makes it a little more special to have something else besides water. I think, my older kids, they're kind of becoming adults now too. So we're still, we're probably growing out of like always having like a kids, but then we're still having families over with little kids too. Right.
So we're not totally.
How do you make your lemonade? Do you make it from fresh lemons or do you use the quick, bottled lemon juice?
Yeah. I'll just use the powder. I'll just buy stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Just use a mix.
I have a friend in the South who did the bottled lemon juice, the real lemon, which I know there's probably other stores that may sell fresh real lemon juice as opposed to ones that are shelf stable. But she would do, maybe there's a recipe on the back, I'm not sure, but she would do the bottled lemon juice. I think it's just sugar and water. Yeah, it was so easy and the kids loved it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should do that. I'm from the South too. I still don't remember to make lemonade.
Lemonade, iced tea, all the things. Yeah. It's fun. I will say, when you do anything with real sugar, it is very sticky when it spills. And so it's always like a catch-22 because I know that the sugar-free stuff is not, maybe it's going to, I don't know, cause cancer or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
sugar-free, I don't know.
But it's not sticky?
I don't know, but it's not sticky.
Okay.
So if you do like a sugar-free lemonade powder or a sugar-free soda, like you mix in anything that's considered diet, but then when it spills all over, it's not sticky.
I did not know this.
But I guess, if we're only doing that once a week or once a month, then it's going to be fine. But yeah, that way when something spills, you're just like, oh, well.
The other thing I worry about, because most of the time when we're having company over, it's in the evening. In the afternoon, I don't think I would worry about it. But if we have company over in the evening and the kids are small, I always wonder, do the parents want the kids to have that much sugar before bed or caffeine or something like that? So I guess maybe if it was little kids, sparkling water would be an idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess then the parents can just decide how much or a small amount.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever had anybody complain about that, or do I just worry about it? I guess I worry about it for them.
No, I think people are all families are different. We have a very wide range, even in our own families, of like people who just like have, no cares at all about caffeine or sugar for the little kids. And then other moms are like, oh, I'd rather that they didn't.
Yeah.
But I do try and like lay off a lot of chocolate recipes have the powdered
like espresso.
Coffee. Yeah. So if I know that I'm going to serve it that night, then I will not put the coffee in the Texas sheet cake or the brownies or whatever.
I just ordered an instant coffee because some of my recipes call for instant coffee. I have these amazing muffins that call for instant coffee. Or like you're mentioning, the sheet cake. I ordered one that was decaf.
Oh, nice.
So I'm thinking maybe if it's at night, you still have a sugar, you still have chocolate, but maybe it wouldn't be as worrisome as an instant espresso or an instant regular coffee.
I'll have to see. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm not sure the quality would be high enough to drink, but I ordered it off of Amazon. I think it was their brand, maybe it was Whole Foods because I think Amazon bought Whole Foods. It was the Whole Foods brand, but Anyway.
Oh, well, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
I
Because there is decaf instant coffee out there.
Yeah.
Might be.
I don't worry about
the
it
way
so
to
much
go.
now that my kids are older, but I remember if you're having 2 or 3 families over with kids under 6, you might want to watch the
Watch the caffeine and sugar and chocolate espresso brownies.
Yeah.
I have a really funny story. I don't think I've told this on here before. Okay, so I lived in the South. Obviously, I've lived in the South most of my life. Came to visit Becca Merkel when she was first married and they had Knox. He was a baby. And I told her, we'll do it. Obviously we'll have dinner at your house, but I'm going to plan the menu. I'm going to bring all the ingredients. I'm going to make everything. And this was before I was a coffee drinker. And I had never really lived in the Northwest where everybody drinks coffee all the time. And, and everybody's systems are different where some people can drink coffee and it not affect them at all. They drink coffee all day and they can still sleep. Not me. So I don't even remember what we made together, like the dinner, but I know for dessert, I was very proud to serve chocolate espresso milkshakes.
Oh, wow.
With whipped cream on top and shaved chocolate on top. And they were so delicious. And I kept thinking that as I was laying there at 3 a.m. completely
wide awake,
unable to sleep.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I realized, that's what espresso does to a person.
Oh, yeah.
And probably the chocolate and the sugar and everything else. It was a learning experience.
Yeah. Especially like shots of espresso.
Yes.
Whether it's in the dessert or over ice cream.
Yeah, I was young and did not know much about the world of espresso and coffee. I was just reading an ingredient,
That's funny.
3 shots of espresso. Let's make some espresso.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, why not? And, and for them, it may not have, likely, I don't remember her saying she stayed up till 3 a.m. So they probably didn't bother them at all. They're just like used to it or their body just processed it. They didn't, we slept just fine. Well, for me, I don't know that I even slept that night. But
Oh, yeah. I haven't been there. Yeah. I'm more of a just have it in the morning one time.
Me too.
Call it good.
Me too. That's the same for me. I can't drink it too late in the day at all. Even decaf, I try to not drink super. Like I can't have a hot cup of decaf right before bed. It's still enough to keep me awake, unfortunately, because I do like coffee.
Yeah. Well, it's a good reminder to always have decaf around when you're having people over, because a lot of people want decaf. Maybe it's now that we're all getting into our later 40s and 50s, all of our friends are like,
I agree. That is a very good tip to have both. I do try to have a bag of each and then offer to make decaf because there's some people who really would enjoy it, but they can't do the regular at night and they would love it with their dessert if you could offer decaf. What is your must-have kitchen item and where can we find it?
Okay. So for this, I do have a giant, tall soup pot. So if you want to make this the big size, but I brought it. So
let me see.
I want you to see this. So here is my favorite pot of all time.
Okay.
So this is what
Tell
I
us
use.
all about it.
Have you seen one like this before? It's just like the widest, shallowest pot that you can find. So it looks like a soup pot, but it's like twice as wide and shallow. So it is just the best for browning everything.
Well, because it has so much space on the bottom. How do you fit that on a burner? Or does it have, some have those rings where it supposedly distributes the heat and it can
I think it does
kind of spread out and keep the whole thing hot?
I put it on my big burner, but then I also turn on the one behind and I turn on the middle because I have a gas stove. So I have one of those middle ones.
Yes.
But for sure, I use 2 burners on one side. So sometimes, I will just use all 3 burners and it's that big. But
I love it. It reminds me of it. I have a huge skillet that's deep and I use it for so many things. But this is taller. It's like that, except more of a soup pot. I guess it is a soup pot.
Yeah, it really is. So like for this recipe, you can easily just brown everything in this one pot and then it's still, you can feed like 20 to 30 out of this. I think if you did more than that, you'd probably graduate to the tall. But I don't love using my tall soup pot because
it's harder to stir.
It's just harder to stir, and I don't know. So yeah, I probably will need to break that out for the fall. But this is just for if you're having 2 or 3 families over and you just want to make everything in one pot. I use this for everything. So
okay, tell us the brand.
So it's a Winco brand, which is actually it's not the grocery store, but just the restaurant supply.
I think on my website I have the Winco hotel pans listed.
So it's the same company. So they make these. I try and ask for just one nice thing for like birthdays and Christmas. And so this was one of my birthdays. So yeah.
Isn't it funny how our birthday lists change as we become moms and we're feeding a family? I love it.
Yeah. But this is my favorite pot. And I would use it occasionally when I was at Katie's house, my sister-in-law, because she has all the things for catering. And every time I'd be like, I love this pot. I just really do.
No, I love it just looking at it. Yeah. I can tell it would be my favorite.
Yeah. So, and then every time that I have somebody over, everyone's like, where did you get that pot? And I'm like, well, Katie showed me this
I've
pot.
never seen one like it. I've
really
only seen the tall, more narrow soup pots. Just the standard except taller. But this one, there's a lot of browning when you like. Yes, and if you do too much in one, like let's say onions, and they start just steaming sometimes. So having a lot more surface area on the bottom is ideal for getting them brown.
Yes. So you're not supposed to crowd, in a crowd for good browning. So,
or if you're trying to brown meat, I make beef tips and rice or beef stew. And if you want to brown your pieces of beef, you have to do it in batches. Well, if you have a regular soup pot, that circle on the bottom is pretty small. You're doing what you have here. You could double what I normally have to do. Yeah. You could double the amount.
It saves a lot of time because you don't have to brown it depending on how many you're cooking for. If it's just a couple of families, then you can just brown in one round. So that's my favorite. I use it all the time. And
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, my birthday just passed, so.
Well,
Christmas time, Christmas list.
Christmas is not too far away. But yeah, this is by far my most used pot.
Okay, well, I will post a link to this on the website. Again, it's comeoverfordinner.com. You can find her recipes, and then the products that she recommends or that anyone has recommended will be under the shop section. And there will be a picture and a link so you can go and see what we're actually talking about. And find it and buy it if you need it on your Christmas list, then it will be there. You can just send your husband the link, or your sister, or your mom. Just hint.
Yeah, exactly.
I might really need this pot in my kitchen.
Yep. You have to ask for one cooking thing, but then you can branch out and ask for other things. But this one is the best.
Yes,
I love it.
I remember Katie saying that she had a list of cookbooks, and that was her list. Yeah. She liked having new cookbooks to look at. Yeah. It's also a great idea.
Yeah, for sure. But this is even good for when you're not having people over and you're just cooking in batches for your own family. So we were talking about that too. Where you just need to brown hamburger or a bunch of sausage. I was helping my boys plan for they work out really early in the morning. So they're very hungry afterwards. I was helping them learn how to batch prep breakfast burritos, and we're browning all the sausage in this thing because it can take so much at once. So
that's a fabulous idea to teach your kids how to do that and how to prep ahead and how to make a large batch. Because if you do the work once, now for I don't know how many mornings it will last, but for countless mornings, they have a breakfast burrito they can pull out of the freezer or whatever else they've prepped.
Yes. We're working on that because the first week of school was definitely we need to figure out how to get more food during the day.
I'm starving, Mom.
Well, we need bigger lunch boxes and lots of batch prepping. So,
well, and for kids that are participating in sports, they're working out early in the morning, you just ramp up the calorie need. Yeah. And so it's also mom trying to get her feet under her with the amounts of food. Oh, yeah. So for a pot like this, I'm thinking how genius would it be, even if you're just serving your own family on a weeknight, instead of making one soup recipe, make 2 or 3 and freeze the other ones. I love freezing ahead.
I do too.
I absolutely love it, and I need to do it more when I have time.
Yeah.
I do it. Whenever I have out-of-town company coming for a long period of time, like say a week or 2 weeks or whatever, I try to, a couple of months ahead of time, start cooking and freezing. I'll cook whatever we're making. Like let's say I'm making a batch of muffins. Well, if I can at all, okay, double or triple the recipe, leave one out for the family, put the others in the freezer. And every time I cook, I'm trying to cook something that I can freeze, because then when your company comes in, you're not cooking and cleaning the entire time they're there. You have all these pre-made things you can pull out and put in the oven or just leave out to defrost on the counter like with muffins. So,
yeah, I totally agree. And things, I mean, if you're going to make it for your family anyway, then why not double or triple it and keep it in the freezer?
Yes.
You have to have freezer space.
So on those busy nights, yes, that is true. Freezer space, it can be limiting. So you have to decide, can I do that? If you don't have a deep freeze, if you have room for a deep freeze, you can buy a tiny chest freezer or even look on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or something like that. You can find some, but you do have to have space for it.
Yeah.
Which can be tricky.
It can be. I mean, when you're young and moving around a lot. But I mean, after you get kind of settled, that was one of our first Craigslist purchases, like an extra freezer. So it just makes everything easier.
It really does.
So many weeknight things that you can double or triple since you're making it anyway and just put it away. So
when our son got married last June, it was last June, a little over a year ago. Yes, they just had their first year anniversary. We had a lot of family coming into town, and I did what I'm talking about. And it was so nice to be able to spend that weekend, the days leading up, the weekend, maybe the day after. I don't remember, people that came and went at various times, but it was so nice to be able to just enjoy, not just hanging out at the house talking, but there's so many activities when it comes to a wedding. There's a rehearsal dinner, there's just different things at different people's homes or active, prepping, like setting up chairs for the dinner or wedding. And then after they're gone on their honeymoon, there was the cleanup the next day. And so I just remember there were so many times when I could just grab food and let's go, and it didn't matter how many people we had in the house. I just had bags and bags of food, and I was feeding hungry teenage boys.
Oh, yeah.
Lex's friends had come from out of town, and I remember the day after the wedding, we were cleaning up with the Merkel family. All these boys wake up hungry, but we need to be at the kitchen like right now. So we were throwing breakfast burritos. Speaking of frozen breakfast burritos, we were throwing frozen breakfast burritos in the microwave.
Oh, yeah.
I was grabbing muffins off the counter, and we were eating on the way, and it was just fabulous. And then we could be on time helping. We called it Team Lex.
Yeah.
With Team Lex, we're here. We're going to help do the cleanup and the breakdown. We had to take down all the chairs, or the guys took down all the chairs, and the ladies were in the kitchen. And
the family just pitches in and helps, and you got to feed them while they're there. That's so fun.
Having freezer meals ahead of time, it made it so much more fun. Yeah. Really did. So. One of these days, I'm going to do a podcast with my daughter-in-law. We've talked about it already, talking about freezer meals, because she loves to do that. And my son, he's over 6 foot and over 200 pounds. Yeah. She does freezer meals just for him or just for their family. And it's just the two of them. They just had their second baby. But she's like, I love freezer meals. So we're going to get on and talk about it and do a whole episode on it.
I think everybody gets like what your family likes over the years, and then what freezes really well. So if you can combine those two things, what does my family really eat and love versus what freezes really well, and then mix the two together, then those are the meals that I am constantly batch cooking and then freezing. So if you're going to make pulled pork, then that is like something where I'm just like, if I'm going to smoke one pork shoulder, then I'm going to smoke 4 and do all the mess in one day.
Yes.
Like, it's so messy to have to shred it all. And you never know exactly when it's going to be done anyway, when it's going to be falling off the bone, but just things like that. So if I'm going to do one, I might as well do 4. Or if I'm going to make enchiladas, like something time intensive, why not make 4 pans instead of just one?
Yes.
There's other things like
and
that.
then when the nights that you are really busy, you can come home or you, if you think ahead and defrost your chicken early.
Exactly.
Or pull that pulled pork out early. If you think about it ahead of time, or whenever it is, when you're thinking, oh, we're having company over, I can pull out this pulled pork. I mean, it's just the most amazing thing.
Yes. Just especially the things that are just time intensive or messy. I'm all about the ones that just cause a lot of dishes. And so I like those to be like mashed potatoes. I like doing those in big batches.
Do you freeze mashed potatoes?
I do. And they freeze really well if make sure that you put like a stabilizer in there, like a sour cream,
butter, or
cream cheese works
cream
really
cheese.
well.
Yeah.
And then they freeze just fine.
I've talked about my disaster
Have you?
of not knowing that. Because I'd never in my life frozen potatoes.
Oh, were they watery?
Well, my mother-in-law had a garden and dug up all these amazing red new potatoes, and they were so delicious. And I thought, well, I'm going to be so amazing and freeze garden vegetables. And it was a disaster because I didn't realize that to freeze, I boiled them all, mashed them, and all I had to do was add some fats to it and just make the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Did not realize that.
Yeah.
And when I defrosted them later, thinking my family is going to have delicious mashed potatoes, it was just this mealy, watery mess.
Yeah.
It had to go in the trash. It was a tragedy, but I learned my lesson. Yeah. So now if I ever do frozen mashed potatoes, I would just make them without the green onions. If you want to do green onions, I don't know if those would freeze very well, but
no, probably not. But
just make them and then pull them out.
Yeah.
Or twice baked potatoes. It takes longer, but I have done twice baked potatoes with freezing those, and they are beautiful and delicious and so fun for company.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
which is the same thing as making mashed potatoes. You're just putting it in a cute little shell.
Yeah. I just think, doing it, those are also like an ahead of time thing. And for some reason, they just seem to cause a lot of dishes. So
they do.
I like just having that done and everything's cleaned up. And then you're not doing it the same day as you're having people over.
Your kitchen's clean, but then also when they leave, you really don't have much cleanup work to do.
No. Especially if you do them in the foil pans.
Yes.
Most of what I freeze are in like the foil disposables.
I've also learned that over the years because I would take my regular dishes and freeze them. And then all of a sudden,
I'm out of
I only have one 13 by 9 glass pan. And it is in the freezer. What do I do? Yes. And I also learned that if you do use your own pan, maybe you should put foil in the bottom or something where you could lift it out, wrap it up really well.
That's a good idea.
And then you have your pan. So then if you need to use that pan to put it in the oven, it fits. You can put that foil wrapped whatever back in the pan. Anyway, tips for freezing things.
Exactly.
So tell us a story. Do you have a story after all your years of hospitality, cooking for a family? Has everything always gone perfectly?
No, it never does.
Never does.
Never does. I do have a funny story actually, but we did have this phase in Seattle where we had so many little kids and one of the toilets was always overflowing. So I don't know if it was our house or what, but we kind of had to, my husband and I had to set a schedule. You had to leave the conversation. You had to go and like check because we had so many little kids and everyone was potty training. And that was a fun time. That was probably just a phase, or maybe it was the house or something.
Yeah, sometimes, there are older houses that just have poor plumbing.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just a hilarious phase of like everyone. There was always somebody in every bathroom because we had so many toddlers. So that was a fun time.
It's funny to excuse yourself like, I'll be right back. And all you're doing is like racing to the bathroom reconnaissance to see if everything's flushed and not overflowing.
Yes,
and
it was such a funny phase. But my worst horror story, it was not having people over for dinner, but I was hosting a shower. And I had hosted many showers. I grew up kind of in a hosting family, and so have it pretty dialed down, I thought. And we were new to a town, and so relatively new to the church, but this younger single gal wanted to host a shower, and she was like, I'll take care of everything. This is a smaller church, so this is, you're doing invitations and favors, and she was lining up the pastor's wife to speak and making it really special. And it was a fun shower. And I was like, well, that's fine. I will do all the food and the drinks and I will host. So you take care of everything else and I will happily host for you. Because she was like, I just can't fit everybody in my apartment or whatever. And so the morning of the shower, I had everything set up and I make everything ahead of time, but I didn't have anything, like nothing was assembled, shall we say. She drove up and her mom and her sister got out and I looked at my watch and I was like, oh my gosh, they're here so early. I was like, wow, 2 hours early? Like that's pretty early. But I'm like, oh, it's going to be fine. Come on in.
I still have 2 hours.
I still have 2 hours. There's Post-it notes and like the serving dishes of where I need to remember to put things.
Which is a fabulous idea.
But I think I was doing, I'm trying to remember what I was doing. I know I was doing a mimosa bar.
Ooh.
With like different fruit juices and
some champagne
or sparkling cider for the kids. So there's always like a lot of junior high and high school age girls that like to come. And then I was doing something else, and I think I'm pretty sure it was some kind of yogurt buffet where you could have like a lot of different toppings.
Like granola fruit, that sort of thing.
Like a bunch of different bowls. And then I had baked a bunch of stuff ahead of time. So
I need to come to one of your showers. This sounds delicious.
It was fun. And when your kids are younger and you're home a lot, it was, it's fun. Like you get everything ready. But then I looked out the window and like 5 more cars were pulling up.
What in the world?
And so I said to the guy, I was like, well, people
Why
are really
people
early.
Coming
like, did
this
they
early?
forget that there's no traffic on the freeway? What's the deal? It's a Saturday. And she was like, and she just looked at me with like this face of horror. And she was like, oh, I forgot to tell you that I changed the time.
No.
She did.
How can you forget that detail?
It was hilarious. And like, we just had this moment where we looked at each other and then I looked out the window again and there was like 20 more cars parking. I just had 40 women streaming through the door.
Okay. That is ready. A small nightmare.
So for somebody who likes to like be prepped and ready,
God was stretching you that day.
Me, and I didn't know most of them either because we were pretty new. And so it was also
so you like, trying to be very put together and impressive. You're like, I'm 2 hours behind now.
Yeah. So that was just a really funny moment. And I was like, well, here we go. And they're all church ladies. And I will say this one lady brought her teenage daughters into the kitchen and she didn't ask if she could help. She just said, put us to work. And it was like the sweetest thing ever. So,
did she realize that? Did she hear of what had happened?
Oh, I didn't say anything to anybody.
Okay. She just was there to help.
I didn't want,
Right. You didn't want people to feel like you're not here on time.
No, I mean, I didn't say anything to anybody. I just,
Well, thankfully, maybe what you were serving was pre-done. As far as your baking was pre-done, your granola was there, your yogurt was there. Like, putting things out, assembling them, putting them in dishes.
Yes. Having all these ladies walk in my door to like empty everything. Just that feeling.
Well, one thing about a group of ladies is they'll start chitter-chattering and visiting long that they won't notice while you're scooping things in dishes.
Exactly. No, it was totally fine. I went into like turbo mode and grabbed stuff out and we got it all set. And so within like 20 minutes, I would say you were there
ready to go.
Business, but everybody was on time and that was just a really
ready to have
thing.
Their granola bar or their yogurt bar and
totally
their mimosa bar.
It was just
wow.
It was so funny because I definitely was like, oh, this is happening, and I don't know anybody. They're all coming in to empty tables.
Yes.
Just empty display tables.
Yes.
Tablecloths, empty cake plates.
Well, maybe they learned some lessons that day of, okay, the way that you prep for one of these things, in case they were nervous about hosting, okay, so you have all your dishes laid out. You have a card in the bottom of each one telling where everything goes. I mean, maybe you helped a lot of ladies that day.
That
to know how to host a shower. This is what it looks like before the food goes into the dish.
It was so funny because it definitely was in the church bulletin at the new time, had been put in the church bulletin, but I didn't
You
ever.
weren't reading that.
I didn't read it, or I just missed it, or maybe we were sick that week. I don't
Well,
know.
or your brain could just not have even registered it
yeah.
because you had already locked in what you and your friend had talked about. So it just kind
It
of
was right there in
skimmed
the
over
texting
it.
conversation. You know, it was all good, but yeah, that was not fun. But also, you look back and you can laugh now. I mean, I laughed in the moment too because I was like,
You kind of had to, so a tear didn't trickle down.
Exactly. There's nothing to do but just laugh and just be like, oh, it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out. So it totally was.
Well, you're a brave soul just for hosting the party to begin with, but then to just put a smile on and keep going despite the 2-hour time difference.
Yep. That has not happened since. That has never happened. Like
your brain really cues in when it sees an announcement on a church bulletin. What time does it say?
Or when you're going
what
to
does my group
house.
Text say?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to somebody's house or you're inviting someone over. It doesn't hurt to send a reminder text. Like, hey, this is the time.
Yep. I'll see you at 6.
See you at 6.
Not 5.
Not 5. It's so funny because everything that you usually do like happens in that last hour. Or, I mean, even if you're having somebody for dinner, there's a lot you kind of just, you like whip out in the last hour and you're just cruising around usually by yourself or with your kids and cranking it out.
Have you ever noticed during daylight savings time, somebody walk into church as it's ending?
Yep. That definitely has happened.
Yes. That's always funny too when somebody with daylight savings time, if they haven't set forward or backwards, it's always really funny. Those first 24 hours, what people will pull off.
Oh, yeah. You can get a lot done.
So be aware if you invite someone to your home during that day, during those 24 hours, if you say 6, they might show up at 5.
Well, our phones update now.
Oh, that's true.
So
we don't have those funny stories anymore.
I feel like
that was really back in the day whenever.
Back in the days of alarm
back in
clocks.
the day when the cell phones weren't smart.
Yes.
I do remember somebody showing up at the end of church as the pastor was saying his last closing thoughts. It's like, oh, I guess this is 11, not 10.
It has happened.
Yeah.
For sure.
But yes, you're right. Now that our phones update, we really don't have those fun stories anymore.
So many benefits of technology.
Well, this was so fun. Thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait to post these recipes and to try this menu. The weather here is already starting to get cooler at night, and so this is a perfect thing to serve. And it sounds like it'll freeze really well.
It does.
So I need to make a triple batch, and I need to go look for this pot because it's amazing. Until next time, bye for now. A quick message for my fabulous listeners. I am the type of person that if I go shopping, I have a hard time saving all of the presents for the special day, whether it's a birthday or a Christmas present. If I feel like it might be an extra gift or a bonus gift, I might justify giving it early because I just can't wait to see their reaction. I've thought about them, I bought something for them, and I just really want to give it to them. Similarly, I get excited about all of the happenings surrounding my podcast and the fabulous guests that I have on, and I just can't resist releasing everything immediately. But now I'm facing the challenge of starting a Patreon page. It's tough for me to create content just for my Patreon community because I love sharing everything with everyone. However, in order to cover the costs of the podcast hosting and my website, as well as plan more exciting giveaways, I'm making an effort to save some surprises for special moments. Just like Christmas gifts or birthday gifts, I'm holding a few things back for the Patreon community. So I hope you'll consider supporting your favorite podcast. And by doing so, you'll get an exclusive sneak peek at some entertaining extras that don't make it onto the show. For the price of a cup of coffee at your favorite cafe, you can help support Come Over for Dinner. Thanks for considering it.